I didn't have to rebel because my parents split up and I had no one to rebel against. I could do whatever I wanted because my mother was working and my father was gone. So I didn't have any supervision. I did anything I wanted.
Anything you wanted.
It was like a dream situation.
Well, I'm excited to hear about it. I want to start with your friends, your circle of friends. So can you tell me a little bit about them and how big it was, and if you had like a leader of your friend group?
Well, there was a neighborhood that I hung out in. It was about 7 or 8 blocks from where where I lived.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go up there. There were a lot of people, a lot of guys my age up there. And there was always something going on, and something that we wanted to get into or do.
Mm-hmm.
New York was great. I mean, it was a great life at that time for me because I didn't have to do anything I didn't want to do. I had no supervision.
Yeah.
So I was free to do whatever. So for about 3 semesters in school, I didn't even go to school. I mean, I only went there to visit. I mean, to see guys that I knew. But the school was right across the street from my apartment building.
Uh-huh.
Right across the street. So a lot of the guys would come to see me because my apartment was right across from the school.
Yeah.
Right across the street.
It was convenient.
So I think I got left back 3 times.
Oh, wow.
I was a year and a half behind. I eventually made up most of that. But when at the end of that period, I had great time.
Mm-hmm.
I did everything I wanted in New York City. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And but I got left back 3 times. So in the summertime, I would sleep out at the beach on the sand if it was a nice night.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have to come home. I just sleep on the beach.
Mm-hmm. Just experience life.
Oh, it was great. The only thing I missed was I didn't get to go to a decent college. By the time I decided to do more with school, my record was so poor. I went to a school that nobody ever heard of, and if they had, they wouldn't have gone near it.
Yeah.
So, but I went there, and it was okay for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got the credits I needed to go to optometry school.
Yeah. Well, it seems like
everything. I was just lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Everything worked out great, but I had the best time.
Yeah.
I just had the time. I mean, I loved it. Every day was great. I did whatever I wanted to do. I lived in New York. I saw everything I wanted to see.
Uh-huh.
And it was an adventure. It lasted a year and a half. Well, you're not going anywhere. Okay. She's eavesdropping. I mean, there was a pool room there. There was some very important underworld characters that did their business out of that pool room.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't operate in the pool room during the summer, but the rest of the year they did most of their business out of the pool room.
Yeah.
And that was a good thing for me because they needed us to do stuff for them once in a while, and I could make a little money that way. And I mean, I didn't do anything real bad, but it wasn't. The cops didn't bother us anyway because these guys paid the cops off. So
yeah, wow.
What we were doing was illegal, but they were victimless crimes
Mm-hmm.
that were involved.
Yeah, you could have never been caught for what you did.
Well, probably that's more true than not. Yeah. They were bookmakers, and they were doing stuff they shouldn't have been doing, but nobody cared.
Mm-hmm.
In New York City, and the cops were paid off. Everybody was happy. So if we wanted to go to a ball game, we just hanging out of the corner. Somebody said, look, you want to go to the ball game? Someone would say, and we go down. And sometimes we wouldn't even get on, we'd hitchhike on the trolley cars to get to the polo grounds. We didn't have to pay to get on the trolley car. Coming back, all the people would come out of the ballpark. The trolley cars were so crowded, the conductor couldn't see the back of the car. And we used to open the back door with our finger. There's a little thing where you stand on it, and the door opens if you're inside the trolley.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're inside and you press on it, it opens from the outside. So we would come home on the trolley car. It wouldn't cost us anything to go or come, and we could sneak in. And once we got there, we'd see the ball game. Then we come home. We go around there, and if there was a really good stage show with the movie, if you went early in the morning before the first show, there was always a bunch of kids there at this place where there was a fire exit. And we used to go to this fire exit, and there'd be about maybe 8 or 10, 12 kids there. And we'd all chip in a nickel apiece. And when we got up to 55 cents, we'd send one kid, could be anybody, to the box office to buy a ticket. It was 55 cents for a ticket. And we send one kid there. He'd go in. He'd open the fire exit where we were, and we all run into the theater. They couldn't catch us all. I never got caught doing that. We would jump these freight trains. If you knew where they stopped, you could jump them. There were always empty cars. You know, the doors would be open and nothing would be in them. So you could get into those cars. The freight trains were easy to get into. The only trouble was there were a lot of hobos on these trains. Sometimes you jump a freight and you get in and there would be a hobo there, you know. And
I'm just
they
like,
were pretty disgusting. You didn't want to run into them. You know, one time I jumped a freight in Louisiana, and I got into the freight car. You had to wait till the car was moving, you know. You get in, you jump it while they're in the yard. It goes about 3 miles an hour. It doesn't move. And you could, if you saw one that was where the doors were open, you'd presume it was empty. Jumping. So I went in this with my friend Myron. He and I went to school together in Louisiana, and I gave him we jumped this freight train when they were taking on water in Hammond, Louisiana. So we jumped the freight train. We got in, there was a hobo in.
Oh my gosh. What'd you do?
He was disgusting. I mean, he was a dirty guy, and he started talking to us. When we came in there, he was laying on the floor of the car, and he was unconscious. Somebody had hit him over the head, and he was laying there. Then he got up, and he wouldn't stop talking, like me. He wouldn't stop. So he started talking, and he wouldn't stop. And finally, I said, look, I'll tell you what. I said, you stay on. I drew an imaginary line across the floor of the freight car. I said, you stay on this side, and we'll stay on this side. And I don't want you to come over to our side of the freight car. We won't come over. You own that. We own this. It worked out pretty good. He still was talking, but it wasn't as bad.
Staying on his.
We got up. He started talking again. I couldn't stop him. It was just awful. He was driving me crazy. So I was with my friend Myron from New York. We went down there together. And we got up to Jackson, Mississippi. And I said to Myron, I said, we got to get out of here. This guy's driving me crazy. But, you know, when the cars are moving, you can't tell how fast they're going. We weren't that experienced in freight trains. So when we were going, you can look out the door. It's fabulous. It's more comfortable than riding on the real train, you know, because you have the whole car to yourself. You can open the door, all the fresh air comes in, you can see outside. It's really great. So I got Myron over to the door. I said, I got to get out of here. The guy's driving me crazy. We were going to go up to Chicago but
Mhm.
we were only in Jackson, Mississippi. And I said, we got to get off this thing. So I said to Myron, we had our suitcases, our little satchels. So I said to Myron, I said, here, I said, you jump first. I couldn't tell how fast
Test it
I
out.
was going. I was afraid if I jumped out, I'd get killed, you know.
Yeah.
So I said to my friend Myron, I said, Myron, you jump first. He says, I ain't jumping. I says, come on. I
Sure.
says, jumping. He wouldn't go. So I took his suitcase and threw it out the door. So I took his suitcase, I went, and he jumped after us.
Oh,
He jumped after it and he survived. So I jumped after he did.
mhm.
I was not doing any good in New York. I was screwing around and doing stuff maybe I shouldn't have been doing. And then one day he came around the neighborhood and we took a taxi cab downtown. We're going to probably to hear some bands or something. And I said, what's going on with you? He says, I'm going to college. I said, you what? He says, yeah, I'm going to college. I says, where are you going? He says, I'm going to Southeastern Louisiana College. I says, what? I never heard of this school.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. Who never? Nobody ever heard of that school. He says, I'm going to Southeastern Louisiana College. So I says, yeah. I says, what? Why are you going down there? He says, because it costs, listen to this is true. He says, it costs $432 a year for room, board, tuition, and books.
There's no way.
I says, that's crazy. There's
There's
no
no
such
way.
place. No way. There's no such thing as that. He
Yeah.
says, yes, it is. He says, I'm going. I've already I'm going down there in December, I think he said. This was like 2 months before that.
Mhm.
So I said, that's impossible. He says, if you come up to my house tonight, I'll show you. I got the catalog. I said, I will. So I went to his house. He lived in Manhattan. So I went to his house. He showed me it was $432 a year, $216 a semester.
That's insane.
And Louisiana, this school was in the middle of a swamp.
Hmm.
And nobody would go there on purpose. I mean, it was a horrible place. It was a swamp there, and the school was in the middle of a swamp. I mean, it was just awful. Can't imagine how horrible it was.
Yeah.
But we went there. I was there for 2 or 3 days, and I woke up in the morning, and the whole dormitory was surrounded by water. There was a boat right outside the dormitory, and there was a guy rowing the boat. There was no ground to stand on. It was in a swamp.
Uh-huh.
The first day I was there, I went into the dormitory and all the parents were there. Myron and I were, our parents weren't there, but
Hmm.
all these rural Louisiana people were there with their kids,
Yeah.
Well, they were just unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah.
so we go in there, they were all talking in this Quonset hut. You know what a Quonset hut
Hmm.
is? It's a military barracks. That's where the freshmen stay. We were going to stay in this Quonset hut. That was the dormitory. So, and all the colleges had them then because
Hmm.
there was a huge influx of kids going to college because of the World War II thing, all the veterans. This was right after the war. So we got in there and they were all in the corridor talking with their parents. And
Hmm.
I got into that. I ever tell you this story? It's
Oh.
unbelievable. So they're talking with the kids, and they found out that I was Jewish, that Myron and I were Jews. There were no Jews there. They'd never seen a Jew before. So some rural Louisiana guy, and we were talking, he found out I was Jewish, and then we're talking and talking, and all of a sudden he grabs my head like this, and he starts rubbing my hair. I said, what the hell are you doing? This is the old man, the father of this kid, Can't remember his name. But he says, I wanted to see if you had horns.
Oh my
Because Moses in this Michelangelo painting, there's a painting of Michelangelo of Moses by Michelangelo where he has horns. And this guy thought all Jews had horns. A lot of them thought that.
Hmm.
It was so dumb. They just were.
That's
That's
crazy.
the way all of them were down there. Those are the kids I went to school with.
Yeah.
I was competing with these guys.
Well.
It was unbelievable. It's like trying to win a race and nobody else can walk but you.
Yeah, it must have been crazy to see people like that for the very first time.
The teachers loved me because
Yeah.
I was the only literate person in the classroom. I tell you something. I was so lucky in everything. I can't believe it. I mean, everything is like a dream.
Yeah.
Look at
Just
this
worked.
house I got. This house is unbelievable.
Mhm.
Nobody I ever heard of has a house like this.
Hmm.
I mean, when I came down here, I had never lived outside that stinking apartment in the Bronx. And it was a really lousy neighborhood. And
Hmm.
it was, I mean, it's just unbelievable how lucky I am.
Yeah.
But it's just truly incredible.
Yeah, it is.
Truly incredible the luck that I've had. Because I'm not that smart.
Hmm.
Then I met Mary.
Yeah.
Mary's fabulous.
Yeah.
Lucky with her. It's just incredible. I don't know, and let me say this. I don't know anybody who's luckier than I am.